All right, let's dive right into today's explainer. Today we're looking at a truly fascinating piece of source material. It's a short, timeless fable that explores the really deep, often hidden dynamics of strength, fear, and survival. It's the story of the lion, the bull, and the wild goats. Now on the surface, it might just seem like a simple little tale about animals. But as you'll see, it is actually an absolute masterclass in threat assessment and power dynamics.
Okay, let's dive into this. The core question that drives this entire narrative is this. What happens when immense strength meets an overwhelming threat? We usually think of strength as an absolute, right? Like, if you're strong, you're safe. Period. But this text immediately forces us to question that assumption. It asks us to consider what a powerful entity does when it suddenly encounters something that is just entirely out of its league. Keep this question in the back of your mind as we watch the events unfold.
Section 1. The illusion of strength. Let's establish the baseline power of our main protagonist here.
So, picture this. Our story begins by setting a scene of absolute confidence and autonomy. The text explicitly describes a bull who possessed great strength. We aren't just talking about your average animal. This guy is a powerhouse of the forest. And because of this physical strength, he had complete freedom. The source tells us he used to roam freely through the forest wherever he pleased. He's comfortable, he's totally dominant in his immediate environment, and he is entirely unbothered. He represents physical power unchecked.
But then, the environment changes instantly. We go from step 1, roaming freely, straight into absolute chaos. A lion living in that same forest spots the bull from a distance and just attacks. And the pacing of the text here is incredibly fast. The bull goes from total peace to being violently attacked, to fleeing for his life into a nearby cave, to immediately being headbutted by goats. It's this rapid-fire sequence that strips the bull of all his freedom in a matter of seconds.
Now you might be wondering, to understand why a strong bull would just run, we really have to compare these two forces. The text describes the bull as having great strength, right? But the lion is described later by the bull himself as massive and intent on catching me. This is a lethal adversary. The bull isn't weak, but against this lion, his strength is suddenly rendered entirely irrelevant. The sheer, overwhelming power of the lion creates a sudden and profound terror. The text notes the bull was terrified for his life. This completely shatters his illusion of being the strongest creature in the forest.
Let's move to Section 2, the Cave of Lesser Evils, and see how this builds.
So the terrified bull runs into a nearby cave seeking sanctuary, but, that didn't exactly save him from trouble. The text tells us that this cave was already inhabited by a herd of wild goats. His chosen refuge, the one place he thought he could hide from the lethal threat outside, wasn't empty. He's basically traded an open forest with a massive threat for a dark, confined space filled with strangers. And here is the immediate, deeply ironic consequence of his escape. Step 1. The massive, terrified bull squeezes into the cave. Step 2. As soon as he gets in there, the goats immediately begin to butt him with their horns. It's a really striking visual. You have this creature of great strength who used to roam wherever he pleased, now trapped in a corner being physically harassed by a herd of significantly weaker wild goats. Which brings us to the critical mystery of this text. Why tolerate the harassment? Think about it. The bull has immense strength. He could easily crush these wild goats without a second thought. They are practically nothing compared to him. Yet, he doesn't fight back. He doesn't assert his dominance over them at all. Why would a physically powerful bull choose not to defend himself against mere goats?
Section 3. The bull's strategic choice. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is we finally get to hear directly from our protagonist.
Compelled to speak, the bull finally addresses the goats. He says, "Do not think I am tolerating your headbutting out of fear of you. A massive lion is waiting outside, intent on catching me." Just let that sink in for a second. With this single statement, the bull reveals his internal logic. He isn't acting out of weakness or submission to the goats. No, he is actively prioritizing his survival. His tolerance is a highly calculated strategic decision.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core dynamic at play. On one side, we have the lethal threat, the massive lion waiting right outside, capable of ending the bull's life the absolute second he steps out. On the other side, we have the harassing threat, the wild goats inside the cave delivering annoying but completely non-lethal headbutts. The bull has rapidly calculated that fighting the goats might cause a commotion or force him back outside, drawing the attention of the lion. So he accepts the pain of the harassing threat just to avoid the finality of the lethal threat.
Which perfectly sets up our final section, Section 4, the hidden cost of fear.
Let's unpack the deeper meaning here.
The source text concludes with this explicit, powerful moral. Someone who is terrified of a much stronger adversary is often forced to silently endure the harassment of the weak. The fable uses the animals to establish a timeless rule of power dynamics. It's not just about lions and bulls, right? It's about what overwhelming fear does to any of us. It dictates our boundaries and forces us to accept conditions we would otherwise immediately reject.
So the crucial point is exactly how this mechanism works. Let's break it down step by step. First, a stronger adversary creates terror. That's the lion attacking the bull. Second, this terror traps the victim. The bull is confined to the cave, his freedom entirely stripped away. Third, because the victim is trapped and completely focused on that massive threat, they are forced to silently endure the weak. The goats can basically attack with impunity because the bull's fear of the lion entirely paralyzes his ability to deal with lesser problems.
To distill it down to its absolute essence, fear of the massive traps us into enduring the minor. The bull's physical strength didn't just disappear, but his fear completely rewired his reality. When all of your energy, your focus, and your resources are dedicated to surviving a massive, overwhelming threat, you literally lose the capacity to swat away the minor annoyances. You tolerate the headbutts because fighting back could mean death.
And that leaves us with this final, provocative question to reflect on. Based on the dynamics we've explored today, what massive lions in your life are forcing you to silently endure the goats? You know, whether it's a looming financial crisis that makes you tolerate a totally toxic workplace, or a major life fear that forces you to put up with daily disrespect, the source material perfectly captures this human condition. When we are absolutely terrified of the big things, we let the little things walk all over us. Think about that for a bit. And thank you for joining me today on This Explainer.